You ready for this deal, Jimbo?
Yes, sir.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, throw a comment on there. It really helps me and Jimbo out. Hey, we're coming to you right here from Pawhuska, Oklahoma. It's Cody here, and I got Jimbo, Mr. Rodeo Historian, right here with me. Hey, Jimbo, good morning. Who do we have today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's just another great day in Osage, man. Cody, we got the one and only Byron Walker with us today, one of the top bulldoggers of all time, really, if you want to get serious about it. He's made the finals like 16 times. He was world's champion in 1981 and should have known what he won the year end for the PRCA in 78, I think it was, which is one of those 3 years when they inexplicably decided to give the world to the guy that won the most at the finals instead of, that was an experiment that didn't go over real good, I don't think. But anyway,
He came down to the 10th round a couple other times for him to win it too, I believe, Jimbo.
He's runner up twice, 79, 83, and the top five in the world 7 times. Just really one of the great ones. And we're just real happy to have him.
His wife ain't too shabby.
No, she's not too shabby. They're a racer either. So they're a gold buckle family, you might say.
That's right.
Yeah, not too many of them around.
You're gonna have to make that a trivia question pretty soon.
That's right.
Well, Jim, you left one thing out there.
What's that?
I can't put myself on the back any better than you just did. But not only are we a gold buckle family, we're both a Hall of Fame family.
There you go.
Mary's in the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, and I'm in the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, class of 14. So we're proud of that too, along with Jimmy and Bud Monroe. I believe we're the only two.
Wow. Well, anyway, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I can't thank you enough for letting me be kind enough to come on your show. And also, too, I see by that big coat Cody's got on, y'all got a little snow up there this morning, didn't you?
Yeah, it's maybe snowing right now, but yeah, we got a little bit, not as much as they said we was going to get, but.
Well, I tell you what, these things do get a little warm, Jimbo. I got to take this booger off.
Oh, that sucker will warm you up now.
I seen that big coat. I thought, man, y'all must not have much heater in that museum.
Nah, we sell them over at our other store at the Buck and Flamingo, Byron. So.
So
ever need a good buffalo coat, let me know. We got them. Oh, they are. That'll keep a buffalo warm in the middle of Yellowstone, up to 20 below.
Does.
Yeah. Byron, where'd you grow up?
I was born in Lawton, Oklahoma, and my godparents was Freckles and Edith Brown. My dad was renting a house. He was in the service at Fort Sill there when I was born. So we became great friends of the Browns, Freckles and Edith, my whole life. So my history goes back to 1958. Now, we're from Ennis, Texas. My grandpa came from West Texas and bought a cotton farm here in Ellis County, a little north here at Palmer, between Ennis and Palmer. And then when the drought hit in 54, 5, 3, somewhere in that deal, when everybody went broke in the cotton business here in Ennis, Texas, he went to town and got in the insurance business and formed Bob Walker Insurance, which is still in business today, but at the time it was the largest insurance agency in Ellis County. So that's kind of a background of the Walker family.
What got you interested in rodeo?
My dad, when they lived in Littlefield, Texas, started roping calves and they had a little riding club or something. And it's funny, as children, you never know where your paths may cross. Dad and there was a gentleman named Robert Cook. Now, y'all probably know Robert Cook as Bob Cook that went to California. But when they were children, he went by Robert Cook, and they became friends. And his daddy and my grandpa had a roping club in Littlefield. So when they moved from Littlefield, Texas, back to Ellis County here south of Dallas, of course, Waxahachie, Texas, over there was the home of 4 times world champion steer wrestler Jim Bynum. So my dad started off being a calf roper, and then when we got back to Texas, somewhere around 1952 or 53, started steer wrestling.
And you took to the steer wrestling, I guess, instead of the calf roping or anything.
Oh no, I rode calves, team rope, steer rope. Rode 2 bulls. It was the first bull and the last bull, but it was the same bull.
Right.
In high school rodeo and in college rodeo, I rode little bareback horses until I got on some horses that really bucked, and I figured out that wasn't no fun. You know, as long as we was riding them little 800-pound horses, that bareback riding was fun. In fact, I won my first belt buckle in 1969 at the Cheyenne Frontier Days. They had pony riding there, and I won second in 69. I won, second in 68, and you'll never guess who won it and beat me that day. Doug Vogt.
Oh,
Doug Vogt. That's when I met Doug Vogt in 1968. He won the pony riding that day, and I won second.
We have one of these buckles here in the museum, Byron.
Sir?
We have one of the junior bareback riding buckles from Cheyenne right here in the museum.
It ain't from 1969, is it? Somebody stole mine.
No, sir. Yeah, this guy, I wouldn't put it past him, but I think he won his fair and square.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I hated to cut you off there, but
no worries.
I'll send you a picture of it. You still have? Oh, you don't have yours. It got stolen. I'll
No,
send you a picture
stolen.
of this one.
It was a little square buckle with Sunset Silversmith. Anyway, so then we went through junior rodeo and roping calves, and then joined the HRA in 1973. And went to the junior rodeos, where I met a lot of good friends that I still have today. In fact, I went to one of them's funeral just last week and seen a whole lot of friends that I grew up with over there. Roy Cooper, that's when I met Roy Cooper. Steve Bland, he's passed on. But, you know, there were several friends that we met, and we started a deal back there we had on the side of our horse trailer going to the junior rodeos. It was called Bad Company Rodeo. And my college roommate was Mac Altizer, and he adopted that name into his rodeo deal. And Bad Company Rodeo went on from there.
Wow. You know, they really revolutionized rodeo, in my opinion. Old Mac Altizer and Bad Company Rodeo. I mean, they brought it into what it is today. So,
you know,
love it or hate it, he started.
I had the opportunity to work with the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, and was one of the people that had nominated Mac and is still nominated Mac for the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. And I want to say something right here and take this podium to pat Mac on the back. I said, if you guys right here, you're looking and just assume that we're sitting in Pecos, Texas in the years 1981, and you're watching the rodeo. And now just close your eyes. And you close your eyes, and we're going to have a time capsule, and we're going to go all the way to this year's National Finals Rodeo, and it's the 3rd performance, and open your eyes. The first thing out of your mouth would say, I'll be God dang, Mac Altizer is running the National Finals Rodeo. And for a guy like that not to be in our Hall of Fame that brought a generation of fans to this sport is criminal.
I agree. And something else that all these cowboys enjoy now, and everybody really takes it for granted now, and Mac is the one that brought it on, is all the hospitality booth, you know, all the free food and free drinks and free good times that the cowboys get to have at just about every rodeo. The first time I ever saw it when I was a younger boy was at Mac's rodeos exclusively. I never saw it at any of the other rodeos that my dad entered. So, you know,
he had several ideas inside and outside the arena that made rodeo fun. I mean, it was fun to go to the rodeo. It was exciting to watch. What did he always say? Expect the unexpected. His timed event cattle were always good. You had a chance to win. You went out of your way to go to his rodeos. Was fun. I think he had a whole lot to do with it. I'm sure with being the Ben Johnson Hall of Fame and all that, and right there from your perspective, steer roping is a big event. I believe if it hadn't been for Mac, steer roping would be extinct, because in about 1978, 9, somewhere in there, about the time, if you look back at the stats, when Guy Allen probably won his first or second championship, they only had about 9 rodeos a year that had steer roping. And it had almost just been phased out. They had it at Bonita, Cheyenne, Pendleton. At that time, they didn't have it at Ellensburg. Sheridan always had a steer roping. There are just very few. There was one down there in Sterling,
Pecos.
Colorado. It was, Pecos, and some of them, but it just about got phased out when Mac brought it back. And I think all the steer ropers owe Mac, as a lot of cowboys do. If it hadn't been for Mac, it probably was going the wrong way, and he brought it back to where now a lot of rodeos have it.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a steer open probably, Jimbo, because if Mac had a rodeo, and he had the majority of the rodeos with steer open, if he had one, he had steer open with it. For example, he had steer open in Bonifay, Florida when he had the rodeo there. He had steer open in Adel, Georgia. No one's ever seen it in these places when he had the rodeo there. If he had a rodeo, he put steer open right with it. And we all owe him a big thank you, because a lot of those rodeos still have it today, a big majority of them he doesn't have anymore. So.
Bill, I know this podcast wouldn't talk about Mac. Now I'll get off that soapbox.
All right. No, we'll talk about anything you want to talk about.
He definitely deserves a tip of the hat. If you ever do just a Mount Rushmore of just regular guys influential in rodeo, he needs to be on there. No doubt about it. So.
He done a lot. I mean, he really did. And there's others that's done a lot in rodeo. Even back, one of the things that I'm going to say, every event has had somebody that revolutionized the event and changed it. And you could go back over each event, who was this, who was that, and who changed the event. And, in my opinion, healing, Leo Camarillo changed healing. Back when I was a kid and stuff, we was learning how to team rope, especially back here in Texas. If you could rope 2 feet, you won, because there wasn't very many people that could just rope 2 feet. And I think Leo's the first one that could do it every time. I mean, he would rope it all the time. And then team roping evolved into the headers. I believe today have more to do than the healers. All of these healers can rope 2 feet, but there's very few people that changed the heading event like Speed Williams. And what changed rodeo was Las Vegas, Nevada. I will always be a homer that the finals was a better contest for a cowboy type situation in Oklahoma City than it is in Las Vegas in the time events. I'm not taking nothing away from Las Vegas. It has to do with the facility. In 1985, when we went to Las Vegas, it was in the contract that they would have a new facility within 5 years. And it really was not a good facility when we went. But it changed the contest. It changed, like in the steer wrestling, there's no momentum to the steers. When you're running a steer at Las Vegas, the momentum does not carry the steer down the arena because there's no speed. A big time example is like at Cheyenne. When you turn a steer back at Cheyenne and you may get him by the nose, you go into the ground, you still may be sliding forward. That is what I call momentum, and that don't exist at Las Vegas. The calf roping back in my day and your day at Oklahoma City, they would rope them big Hereford calves, and boy, that calf horse, of course we can't do that anymore, and I get it. I'm not opposed to it, would really be part of that contest at Oklahoma City. We can remember the Scorpion and a lot of the great Mecco and a lot of the great calf horses of all times, that would absolutely be the reason that a guy was a champion, including like Tom Ferguson, that great horse he had, Bar. Barry Burke had the Sorrel horse. I mean, there was just a bunch of horses like that really were famous. I'm glad to see the new days, I guess that's Horse Pockets, is becoming one of them horses. And it's the first time I've seen a calf horse step up in years that's becoming as famous as the riders. And you take in the steer wrestling event, one of the greatest horses of all times was a horse C.R. Jones had named Peanuts. I don't know that I would ride Peanuts in Las Vegas on a bet. The way that he worked, he run really close. He wouldn't be a good horse out there. And you take a horse that was a terrible horse at the National Finals Rodeo, was Jim Bynum's horse, Oh Blue. That might have been the greatest horse that ever was at Las Vegas that he never got to go because he was gone before it went to Las Vegas. But a horse like that would have been, oh my gosh, how much money you could have won on a horse like that.
What about Yellow Dog?
I won some money on Yellow Dog. I wouldn't put Yellow Dog in the top steer wrestling horses of all times. I like a horse that's a little more broke than Yellow Dog was. I'm not saying he wasn't a great horse, but he was a little better horse when Yellow Dog, when they first hauled Yellow Dog, he was in my 3-horse trailer with Todd Fox in Houston. And then they split ways, and then Jimmy took him over, and then Duhan rode him there that year at the finals, and he done good. Yellow Dog wasn't half of the horse. Speaking of the powers, is the other horse that Steve Duhan bought for Jimmy, or found for Jimmy, that come from Mr. Duhan, Steve's daddy. What's the horse's name? The little bay horse he had. Having a senior moment here in a second. I rode him last year. I haven't run at the National Finals. I rode him, but that was way better horse that the Powers had than him. When Fort Worth Rodeo is going on right now. So when I first started to the Fort Worth Rodeo in 1977, they had what is a step back gate. Do you know what a step back gate is?
I don't.
No, sir.
Like a gate now is split and both sides open. Back then, a step back gate was a straight gate like they used to have at Cheyenne, and the guy opened it like this. So in 1977, the first time I went there, they had what we called a step back gate. It was a straight gate across the front of the deal, and the guy opened the gate, and that's where you went. That was my first year at Fort Worth. It took a really good horse to score under that circumstances. I mean, they had the steers were absolutely daisy fresh. And when you walked in that barn that didn't smell too good at Fort Worth, right over to your left was going to be Roy Duval and Old Whiskey. And right past his stall down there was going to be C.R. Jones and Peanuts. Over to your right would be Tommy Combs and the sorrel horse he had. I'll think of him in just a minute. Rick Bradley won the championship on him in 76. Right past him was Wayne Jennings, and he had his horses. On the next row was my dad, and we had old Skeeter over there. And on the other side of the hallway was Bob Marshall, and he had Little Eight. Now, I'm going to tell you, they had 200 steer wrestlers at that rodeo. And if you wasn't riding one of them horses that I just mentioned, you won nothing. You won absolutely nothing. That's how good that phase of horses went. And nowadays, these guys, they're different. They rodeo with 4 guys, and that's all that rides the horse. And there hasn't been a real good mount horse out there, probably since the horse that Mr. Mark Wallace had with Cadillac. And that's the horse that I don't remember if it was Wagon Smack's first championship or second championship, but he won it on Cadillac. And that's a horse that everybody could kind of get on. It was by far standing head and shoulders above the rest of them.
You mentioned James Bynum there a while ago, or Jim Bynum. When I was a kid back in the early 60s, that was the guy that everybody wanted to watch. I mean, he might throw one in 3 or something, What made him so good, Byron? I know he was left-handed.
Okay. That's absolutely one of the most greatest things Jim had. Also, too, you remember a while ago I went back who revolutionized the sport?
Yeah.
Big Jim or Jimmy James is what I call him. He won the world in 1954. In 1954, there was not a barrier. In 1956, the Hallettsville barrier come out and they stopped bulldogging out of the A gates. You'll know what the old A gates are, don't you?
I don't guess.
Okay, they bulldogged at where the bucking bulls and stuff come in, and they would back one side of the chute up and the other side of the chute, and the two bucking chutes would come together, forming an A gate. You open the gate on both sides, and somebody would push your steer, and you backed up in the boxes, and there was no barrier. So when you opened the gate, you just took off, and that was called bulldogging out of the A gates. When they became putting up a chute, the next thing they did is they had roll-out chutes that they would put in there, and you actually had a chute that the steer stood in a chute with the step-back gate I was talking about before, and they would pin a barrier up. That created momentum in the steer wrestling. After that, there was a whole lot of champions, Dub Phillips and guys like that had won a ton of money in the lap and tap days. It's what we call them. Their career was over. Exactly like my career was not that great at Las Vegas as it was bulldogging when you put more cowboy into it. So their career was absolutely over. Bynum evolved over that. He was mentored by one of the greatest cowboys of all times, Todd Watley, from Hugo, Oklahoma, taught him how to bulldog. He bulldogged all through that time. And my dad was being a friend of James, has spent many times in the practice pen, put what James did to words and taught me the style that Mr. Bynum had. And that's the style I used and used successfully in my career that Jack Roddy, John W. Jones Sr., Jr., Harley May, all of them evolved that style. And that style had to do with putting your right hand in your ear, lifting up and pushing down on the inside horn. And a lot of these guys today, I mean, I would love to be 26 years old for several reasons to the 65. But if I could have about one more season at 25, I think I could show all these kids where to go creating that style. That's the only one that uses it today, but I would say would be Tyler Wagonsback, and that's why he beats the rest of them.
Don Huddleston said that same thing the other day when we asked him about this modern crop of bulldoggers, and Tyler was the one that he mentioned that doing it, shake cattle up and did it the old style.
There's no question. Huddleston was a great steer wrestler. I'm a history deal. When I went off at 17 years old and rodeoed over the 4th of July, I buddied that week, and where we entered together, Dad put me with two guys. And if you can imagine, I'm 18 years old, and I'm in the airplane with Harley May and Don Huddleston, and was beating them, and probably should have kept my mouth shut, but I couldn't, and they got rid of me pretty quick. They were done. They were over the hill and that, still going, but they still knew how to go. And Don, or I don't remember who it was, Don or Harley, one both could fly, but one of them had an airplane. I wanted to get in that airplane with them. So that was one of the things that I'm most proud of, to get to go off with them two guys. I got a lot of knowledge from getting to rodeo that summer with them.
Harley was a great all-around cowboy. Well, I mean, he could do all events, couldn't he?
Back in the day, Harley was bronc rider. He did it all. When I met Harley, he was only a steer wrestler. But yes, yeah. History books will tell you that you see all the pictures of him riding broncs and doing all that. And a lot of times when you went to rodeo back in them days, you had to work several events. I mean, my dad would rodeo with Freckles and Clyde Frost, and that was the horse race team. My dad was the mugger. Freckles worked the rope, and Clyde rode the horse. That was the wild horse race team that won a lot of money. I've got old videos and stuff. In fact, I ought to just give them to y'all of Freckles Brown bulldogging steers. I mean, Kankakee, Illinois, and the rodeos that they would go to up there. And he had an old horse. I believe Freckles' horse was named Peanuts. I may have to ask Clyde, but they hazed on my dad's calf horse, and Freckles owned the bulldogging horse that they hauled. And Clyde worked the bronc riding and the bareback riding and the wild horse race. Dad worked the two-time events and the wild horse race, and Freckles, of course, worked them all. He worked all three riding events, the steer wrestling and the wild horse race. So my history goes back pretty far.
Yeah.
What was Freckles like when you were a kid?
Oh, he was the funnest guy you was ever around. I mean, he was. I got two trivia questions for you. Y'all should know this. I'm looking at the deal. The Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum. I'm looking at your sign over there. What year did the modern gold buckles? What was the first year they gave them?
I don't know. It was before 1956 because my grandpa got one of them.
It was 1953. And I did some research the other day, and I don't know where Ben's buckle is, but that was the year he won the world in the team roping. I do have a picture of, and I've got a picture of Todd Watley's bull riding buckle that year. But the other day, that group of champions, them buckles have somewhat disappeared. I don't know if y'all got Ben's or a picture of Ben's, but I do have a picture of Todd's. And from 1952, they evolved. The 1952 World Championship buckle was awful. I mean, I've got a picture of it. I ought to email it to y'all. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's a picture. Harley May won the world in 1952. And his belt buckle isn't as pretty as the Salinas buckle. Prior to that, in the buckles around 51 and all that, they were made here in Texas by Nelson Sylvia Company, and a lot of them were square. But from 1953, and I believe the guy's name was some guy in Oregon, designed and patented that buckle, and it's essentially somewhat the same buckle's been given away from 1953 till today. Now, Mary's buckle that she won in 2012 and the one that I won in 81 are way different. They've cheapened them up quite a bit and they made them a little bit different size. So, they've evolved a little bit, but essentially you look at one and you know what you're looking at.
Right.
You can see a picture of Ben's 53 buckle on Steve McQueen. He wore it in Junior Bonner.
That is correct. I remember that. And another thing too, you was mentioning early about the championship when I set the record in 1978 for the most money ever won in the steer wrestling, but I was not the champion. That didn't go over well with the crowd, but also, you didn't know, in 1979, they evolved the format of a tournament or a bracket payoff in the 1979 finals. In the 1979 finals, I won, and I'll show you the NFR, and I won $15,000. I placed in 7 go-rounds and won second or third in the average. I can't remember. Tom Ferguson and Stan Williamson tied in points for second and third. Okay. They went to the third. Instead of taking the money, it was $10,000 to win second, $7,000 to win third. Instead of taking that money, $17,500, and splitting it in half, they said, "Oh no, we're going to have tiebreakers after the fact, all the way down from." In other words, if you tied for 14th and 15th, we would use the tiebreaker system, and somebody won 14th and somebody won 15th instead of splitting it like they do. And Stan beat me $800 because he won the third tiebreaker on that system, and I won way more money in 1979 than Stan did. So all of these systems that they've come up with, I haven't been too happy with, and most times the fans haven't done it. I'm not a big fan of this tournament rodeo that they're having either today. I understand what they're going with and what they're trying to accomplish, but when you got a barrel racer winning $4,600 at the Denver Rodeo, and barrel racers winning 14 and 15,000 years ago, I don't know that we're moving forward. And somewhere the crowd let's not alienate rodeo fans like ourselves by, I don't even understand what they're doing at Denver, and I'm in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's supposed to be simple and easy. Well, I'm in the Hall of Fame, been in the rodeo business, you can understand, my whole life, and I don't even know what they're doing.
I agree. I'm the same way. My dad's the same way. He'll call me and want to know what's going on or who's winning or who's advancing, and I can't even tell him. I've been around it my whole life.
You said they're trying to make it easier for the crowd to
Yeah.
understand, but it's made it worse. We don't know what's
They
going
need to
on.
make it easy for morons like me then, because I don't understand it.
Well, let me
But-
ask you,
Go ahead.
let's go to rodeo and us run 3 head, and I throw them 3 head faster than everybody else. Or we'll go to a rodeo and we'll run 3 head, and you throw your 3rd one faster than everybody else. Who's the champion?
Right. Sure.
I mean,
And it comes down to a drawing contest too. Who draws that?
there's no
that best
question.
steer, you
There's
know?
no question.
Cheyenne,
You get the
Cheyenne, they've kind of ruined that deal. It seems like
Yep.
all the variables and intangibles that got you to that short round ought to count for something.
don't get me wrong. I'm gonna not just throw everybody under the bus here. At Cheyenne, in the riding events and in the barrel race, it may be an improvement. It might be. I'm gonna take the barrel race at Cheyenne. The barrel race at Cheyenne has a pretty decent format. The part of the format that I like is they let everybody that has a WPRA card in. So if you've got $375 or whatever the entry fees are, you're welcome to come. Everybody run a barrel on Sunday the week before. And then they're going to have 8 performances or 7 performances, and they need 80 contestants to fill them performances. So they're going to bring back the top 80 cowgirls and put in the performances. Now, in them performances, 4 girls advance home. The reason I like that format at Cheyenne is for one reason. You be up some days in the barrel race and it rains, man, you got no shot. But if it rains and you're going to compete only against them 12 girls, 4 of you is going to go move on. So in the barrel race, it really does work. It works pretty good in the riding events because the riding events never have a head slack at Cheyenne. So you're only competing against them 10 horses that's out that day to move on. And it is a drawing contest, but you're drawing, it's easier to get 10 horses alike than having 65 horses in a go round that's alike. I mean, there's nobody in the world got 65 horses they can bring to Cheyenne that's going to be even. That's impossible. We all know it. But it is pretty possible you should, if you know what you're doing, to get 10 horses or bulls, which bulls, it really don't matter. I can go to the sale barn and buy bulls today. They can't ride. But, the horses, they even them up, and it's good for that. Now, as far as down there at Chute 9, they've ruined it for me. I mean, that walking fresh steer, walking out there grazing, and that big old steer that weighed about 600 pounds, and let's run him down to the camera pit, or that, them big yearling calves they used to have, and rope the calves and tie them down, and the steer roping. That's what we went for. I got a family that I know very well here in Ennis. They're great friends of mine. For 20 years, they raised their family. Their weekly vacation was they would take their family to the Cheyenne Frontier Days, buy a room at the Little America, had 3 boys. They would get up every morning, go out there and watch the slack, come back, eat breakfast, go to the rodeo, go out to eat that night at the Little Bear, Little America, wherever, and then go put their family to bed and get up and do it the next day. And they would get there on Sunday and stay all the way to the short go. They'd stay 7 days in Cheyenne. Since they started this new format and there's nothing for them to do early in the morning, there's no slack or nothing for them to watch, they don't go anymore. They said it's just, they got a rodeo and the rodeo lasts 2 hours. And after that, what are we going to do? So, I don't know if the new format, if they're selling enough tickets to justify the change to make the daddy of them all just another rodeo.
Why'd they shorten the score up there, Byron? Do you know?
Well, first of all, if you don't want to be the daddy of them all, they should shorten it shorter. The daddy of them all lets the barrier out and we'll go run them. Under this tournament format, there ain't no need to do that. And they're not using fresh steers anymore. And they just want to be like another rodeo. You know, if you don't want that history, we don't need to give it to you. You know, the history of that 30-foot score and all that is the Cheyenne Frontier Days, the daddy of them all. But when you don't want to be the daddy of them all and you want to be the circus that day, it just gives away the winners each day in the time events. If I was them, I would just give them a 10-foot score and we'll catch them right there just like every other rodeo.
Do they limit entries at Cheyenne like they do a lot of places now?
I don't believe there is a limit, but I don't believe they get it for the reason that there's a lot of people don't go to Cheyenne, especially in the steer wrestling event. You know, 2 years ago or 3 years, they only got 29 guys entered.
Yeah, all the steer wrestlers banded together.
Well, they really didn't band together. It didn't pay nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't no banding together to it. You had an event.
It had to be when only 29 enters the Cheyenne.
I mean, when you got
some banding,
you got Salinas, Napa, Salt Lake City, Ogden, Spanish Fork, and you got all them rodeos going on, and you're going to have to take a horse over there over a 30-foot score and try to progress back that day. Now they have modified their format since that first year, but the first year they had it, there was no reason to go over there. And first of all, too, it's not the safest place in the world to go steer wrestling. I mean, there's a lot of guys never run another one. We know very well that was their last time to run a steer was at the Cheyenne Frontier Days. I mean, it's a rodeo, and don't get me wrong, I love Cheyenne. It's one of my favorite rodeos. In fact, the saddest thing of my career is I won second there 6 times and was runner-up to the all-around twice. I mean, I can't believe that one of the years I didn't win it. And Mary's best win that she's most proud of is winning the Cheyenne Frontier Days, and I'm dear friends with everybody on their committee. I get it, but that still don't mean just because we're friends, we got to agree on everything. And the time will fade it out on this tournament rodeo, what we're going to see. I don't know why all of a sudden everybody's got to be a tournament rodeo. Even I got a problem with the Houstons and the Calgary's tournament rodeos that first pays $50,000 that they don't use the rule book. First pays $50,000 and second pays way less. It should pay 40%, 30%, 20%, 10%. So, you know, you need to use the rule book payoffs if you want to have a big, you can't top load them rodeos like Calgary and Cheyenne. I mean, Cheyenne and Houston, Calgary and Houston. Mm-hmm. You know, at first pays $50,000 and you win second at Calgary and second at Houston, you didn't get enough money to get to that guy that won the $50,000 load. And they've even lessened the money at Calgary since the PRCA approved it. It don't have to pay but $50,000. It used to pay $100,000.
Yeah. You know, it used to be in the PRCA rules or the RCA rules, every paid up member could enter any rodeo he wanted to.
You know, that and it should be that way too, because here's the thing. As a top contestant, unfortunately, they all make their money off of the ones that are the weekend guys or the guys that don't win or the others. I mean, it's sad to say, but the same in golf. You know, we have not got to the point in golf that our added money makes enough money that we can tell the other competitors to stay home. Now, if I was running this association, which I don't want to, I still, even at these rodeos, would give everybody a chance to come qualify. Make them more like the U.S. Open in golf, where I'll exempt. Okay, I'm going to exempt you. If you're in the national finals, you get a 1-year exemption, or maybe you're the world's champion, you get a 3-year exemption. I'll exempt some guys, but there's no reason not to have a go round. Just like I said at Cheyenne, everybody come play, and then this is who we're going to use in the rodeo. That's a pretty good format. I mean, it's better than the format they got. And eventually, I think these cowboys are going to figure it out, because I've got a lot of, I think the average age of the steer wrestlers now have dropped way off. I've got a lot of good friends of mine that if they aren't going to the national finals and they're not going to their circuit finals and they're just a guy that would kind of stay in the business, they don't join, they don't pay their $500 dues. I mean, I've got a very good friend of mine that he says, why do I want to be a member of the PRCA when the best rodeo I can go to is Wichita Falls or Weatherford, Texas? I can't go to Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston. You know, I can't go to them 3 rodeos. I'm never going to get to go to them 3 rodeos. So why do I want to join? And even guys like Don Huddleston, she was mentioning, Don stayed on and paid his dues and fees and entered the rodeo for several years after. He'll tell you, he ain't going to lie, he had no chance to win. He just enjoyed coming and get over to the beer stand and see all his friends and do all that. And that you still, that's added money. And back in that, that's $250 times probably 40 or 50 guys. The difference in making it up. And you need them guys to show up at McAllister and some of them other rodeos, Bonita and all them rodeos in the summer to where their numbers are dwelling, that they're not going there. And you're having some of these amateur associations like the UPRA in Texas here. They've moved their finals to Fair Park during the fair, and they're putting on a better rodeo than our Texas circuit finals. And I'm ashamed of that. I was a part of that coming up, and that leadership in that direction, I think, is taking this thing the wrong way.
Is the TV money, is that influencing? Are they having an influence on what's going on?
Me personally, I haven't seen any TV money. The only person where the TV money is doing good, it's giving you a chance to showcase yourself and more visibility in the numbers to get more sponsors. You can get a little better sponsor and some more sponsors out of the box. But then once again, the PRCA, when they go find one of them sponsors out of the box, like Rock 45 Jeans, Rock 45, and I'm speaking of Rocker Steiner, they shut him down because he can't do that. They're opening it up to where I can go get outside the box money. But then when I get outside the box money, they're not going to let me use that advertisement because it conflicts with the advertisement they got. And there's going to be another conflict come up to where I'm sitting here watching a rodeo on television. And during that rodeo on TV, a contestant, they can't wear Kim's Jeans sticker or rock and roll panhandle. But when we go to commercial, the commercial on the Cowboy Channel is Kim's Jeans or rock and roll. Come on, guys. Right's right, wrong's wrong. And we know what June Ivory was, and I want my $50 back. You know, give us a break. I mean, if I can't advertise for rock and roll, how can the Cowboy Channel during my PRCA rodeo advertise for it? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, don't want to be a lawyer, but that is not right. And they can't defend that. I mean, first of all, I mean, they fined them guys $1,000 this year at the finals if you didn't wear a PRCA little sticker patch. Well, the women are not members of the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. Why is it their responsibility to have to advertise for them? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well, right,
I'll tell you,
wrong, just like you said.
I'll tell you another fun fact. Did you know 2 of the most successful rodeos that I went to that were the most fun in Mary's career when she was running being Shed Latte and going to the deals was Houston and Calgary. They ran them rodeos absolutely as prompt, as famous, as well done as the National Finals Rodeo. And I think you both agree. Y'all both seen Houston and Calgary. 2 great rodeos. Run them off good. When they were not approved by the PRCA and they were just standalone rodeos, they had 0 fines. They got along fine. And my point being, why do we have this rodeo at Las Vegas or the NFR that's essentially the association's rodeo? And we find our members ridiculous. Why can't people just walk up and say, like we would, Cody, don't wear that buffalo coat. And what are you gonna do? You're gonna take it off. Hey, would you put this sticker on? Sure, I'll wear your sticker. That's the way cowboys are. You know, they go to somebody and you ask them to do something. And you know what? If you don't want to do it, then go home. That's what they did. You want to whoop your horse all the way across the arena in the calf rope and throwing a fit? Mr. Cooper, we'll see you next year. And they sent him home. And you know how much other problem they had? Zero. All they're doing to do is just act right, nice. Let's just go have a rodeo and try the best you can. And if you're having a little trouble with your horse, we're gonna give you a little time. But then if you're messing around, we're gonna move on. And you know, the old days of the shoot boss, CR Boucher saying, you know, you need to get your horse right or something of disrespect. And that's not a bad way to run this railroad.
You mentioned Calgary. Did you have much luck or like to go to Pendleton? A lot of people don't. A lot of bulldoggers didn't like it up there.
Yeah, I like Calgary. It's one of my favorite rodeos.
Pendleton.
Oh, at Pendleton?
Yeah.
I've won it 4 times, as Mr. Bynum said so far.
Yeah.
Well, I bet he likes it pretty good.
It sounded like you liked it. But you hear a lot of, you know, it surprised me. We've talked to a lot of guys, national final, multi-year national finals in calf rope and steer rope and different ones. And maybe they just went to Pendleton once or twice. You know, they just didn't care for it. It was just a long ways up there to begin with.
It didn't have no distance. They was up there for Ellensburg. It's further than Pendleton. Yeah. The reason is exactly what I've just said back in the forum. When I learned the bulldog, our arena, we didn't have these arena groomers and all that. We just had a tandem disc and a drag. You get railroad irons and put some railroad spikes on it and drag the arena. And when the summertime, when it didn't rain, it was them black dirt clods, just like gravel. And my arena was really, really fast. I mean, it was hard as a rock. But I learned how to handle my feet. And most of these guys that catch them steers, as Mr. Huddleston told you in your earlier deal, and their arm goes like this, cannot handle their feet. If your arm don't go this and you're not pushing on that inside horn and handling, getting the weight up on top of your feet, you're not going to like Pendleton. And another thing, too, for all the fans out there that's watching these steer wrestlers, the other thing you do, once you get the nose like this, everything in steer wrestling goes left. If you watch these young whippersnappers at the rodeo tonight, everybody tune in to watch footwork. When they catch their steers, they push them down this way, get the nose, and then turn the nose back at their butt. So they come in left and then spinning right. So the butt of the steer comes up, the nose comes back, builds a pyramid, they can't fall. You take an old guy like Roy Duval and John W. Jones, they would reach in there and grab that nose and you pull it out this way. So when the steer comes around, he hits flat. And that's the reason why Tyler Wagonsback just kicks their butt. He's just the only one that's out there that I see does that. I mean, it's not hard. Most of these guys watch them, they lean way back, their head's way back. Well, where's the nose? It's down here. Don't get back here. It's down here. To get the nose, you got to bend from the waist. To bend from the waist, the steer's head has got to be below your waist, at your waist or lower. You can't bend from the waist to get the nose. If his horns are right here, it's physically impossible. And what's sad about our event, the guy that revolutionized that and began doing that is Jim Bynum. And we have not had anybody come along that's shown the new way. We've had some new ways that's come in that was not really the way. And what's sad about it is, I would love for there to be enough money, I could be a steer wrestling coach. Unfortunately, to teach somebody to steer wrestle, you come to your house, you got to have a set of horses, bulldog steers. When a guy starts, he's probably going to break the horns off a couple of them, you know, knocking them down, not knowing what they're doing. And then a lot of the things that they do, the worst event in rodeo, worst for these kids to start. And high school rodeo has an event called shoot dogging. It's horrible. If you want a good example, I put my money where my mouth is. My son, Reagan, that we lost, was a 3-time state champion steer wrestler, made the steer wrestling finals twice, and we lost him at 21 years old. They had an event called the Junior Time Event Championship at the arena over there at the National Roper Supply. In that deal, they had an event called Shoot Dog, and it was 20 and under could enter. Reagan had already been to the Texas Circuit Finals, 3-time state champion, and he said, "Dad, I've never shoot dogged." I said, "No, son, because the techniques you use in that shoot dogging are not good, fundamentally sound things to use in the steer wrestling. And they use it in high school rodeo just because it generates a lot of money. Everybody can do it. Steer wrestling is not an event you practice on the ground. 90% of steer wrestling is the catch. You get off the horse. And you got to run steers off the horse to learn how to be a steer wrestler. There's no change for it. All of these steer savers and all this crap that they're using, I'd put it in a ditch just to fill it up because I've seen none of them that I think is any good. There's nothing that can take the fact you got to be a cowboy, get your horse, ride him over there where the steer is, ride to the middle of the back, drop down in the hole and catch him. And when your feet hit the ground, you need to be in a position to get the nose. And all of these training methods that they have, I don't see any of them that I really personally care for. At least I taught my one son to steer wrestling. He was pretty successful, and we used none of it. Except for one thing. And this is the greatest training tool you can use as a steer wrestler. A baseball bat, drill a hole through it, put a 30-foot nylon on it, have somebody pull you on a horse. And that is a great training tool that's artificial in steer wrestling. But unfortunately, there's no money in being a steer wrestling coach or school, or I mean, it's just almost physically impossible unless you run them as a camp. And I'll say that the Myers and stuff, that there's a few out there, they run them as a camp. Hey, you come this year, we'll go out a little bit on the ground, you do good, come back next year, come back next year. Well, unfortunately, at my schools, and I had a few, I would have like 19 guys there, and I'd look at them, I says, this is the cheapest money you've ever spent, because whatever I said, let's make it up, say $250. For $250, you're going to leave here in 3 days, and 50% of you are going to decide this ain't what I want to do, and 25% of that 50% will decide it in the first hour.
It's a fun event when it goes right, Jimbo, but when it goes wrong,
Oh, it looks nasty.
good Lord, some stuff can go wrong.
Yes.
I read somewhere that you were the first teenager to make the national finals in bulldogging.
That's correct. According to Becky Combs, which is Benny's daughter, that I beat his record for being the first, the youngest. Well, there's no question I'm the youngest steer wrestler who ever went to the finals, but I beat his record for the youngest world champion.
Does that still stand, the youngest one to ever go to the finals? Or do you know?
It would have to, because you can't even buy your card until you're 18.
Yeah. How'd that first year go for you when you were just?
It went good, man. I had a great year. I look back at the films. The announcers at the finals on the television was Clem McSpadden and Lex Conley. And I'll tell you a good story about that. It was at the Fair Park over there, and it was cold, as we know. At what is that, the Jim Merrick Coliseum over in Oklahoma City? Is that, am I right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, I never will forget. They had you riding the Grand Entry, and the Grand Entry, man, I was excited. It was good. And Don Gay was the highest money winner of the Texas, carried the flag. Well, that was Donnie Gay that year. And on the flag the year before was the name in masking tape of who carried the flag the previous year, because they would put their name on that flag. So the people passing them out knew who to give it to. And Donnie looked up there and it said Larry Mahan. And Donnie, in straight Donnie Gay fashion, took that masking tape and ripped it off and says, "Off with the old, on with the new." And he led the grand entry, and behind him was Monty Henson, and behind Monty was me, and us three grew up at Mesquite, because it being 30 miles up the road here, working for Neil all year long at no pay, opening the chutes, pushing the calves and steers, working the let-out gate. Me and Hawkeye's job was to work the let-out gate at the other end of the arena, and that's when we started chewing tobacco. You could go over to the concession stand and get some days worth of tobacco. And Hawkeye would say, "Byron, whatever you do, you go outside. Don't spit outside. We'll both get our butts whipped." we was about 8, 9 years old working the let-out gates at Mesquite. But can you imagine that 3 cowboys, and not to say that Pete isn't as deserving as us, but us 4 grew up at Mesquite together. We fought under the grandstands. We fought, wrestled, argued. Pete could whoop us all, though. Nobody wanted to fight with Pete much. That wasn't no fun. But us 3 grew up that we're all in the Hall of Fame together. That I'm pretty proud of that we're friends. I talked to Donnie quite a bit on the phone. I don't see Monty too much anymore, and I don't know where he is these days. But when we're together, we like grew up as kids. And can you imagine within a 30-mile circle that 3 kids grew up at the same time working the labor list at Mesquite, that we ended up in the Hall of Fame? Not to say, their dad, Neil Gay, being in there. That's a pretty tight circle.
Sure is.
I bet a lot of cowboys came in and out rodeo in certain times of the year over there at Mesquite back then, didn't they?
Oh man, back in the day, Mesquite, it was a savior. I can't tell you how many good things I can say about the Mesquite Rodeo. Even in the summertime, if I didn't make the short go at Napa or something like that, I could go home and work Mesquite on Saturday night, and then get my grandma fixed me a chicken fried steak Sunday before I got back out on the road. It was a chance for us all to come home, and then somewhere in the rodeo deal, when they started the limited the rodeos and limited the amount of rodeos you count and all of that, before they had all the rules, you use Mesquite as your it was your guaranteed payday. It paid the bills, that you could come back home and you could win, because granted, they wasn't it was tough. It was very tough, but it wasn't like the other rodeos that had 100 competitors. It was like they would have their 40 guys in a Mesquite, and 40 guys did pay $1,000, pretty much pay your bills for the whole week to get to come back home in the summertime and throughout the year. I would like to know, and I guess there's no stats for that, how many times I have won first place at Mesquite Rodeo. I have no idea, because man, you got to think, I went there the first time in 1976 when I filled my permit in the steer wrestling, and rodeoed and went to Mesquite all the way up into the 2000s. So, you're talking about 40 years going over there, and they would have 26 rodeos a year, and of them 26, I probably went to at least every year 15 to 15. I mean, I guarantee you would go to that many. And there's
he used to be on TV, on the.
It was one of the first that was on TV, and Don Gay and I almost called his name, did a great job. It was on ESPN, and Neil and them did a good job. And that was another thing too. You got a lot of coverage for your sponsors by coming back home and being on the rodeo Mesquite.
Yeah, but this was before ESPN. I was thinking it was one of the Nashville channel. It was TNN maybe.
TNN used to come on.
It might have been, but it was on ESPN one time.
Yeah, I think later. But when I watched it, it was like, I think it come on Sunday night. It may have been delayed broadcast, but I watched it every Sunday night and looked forward to it. And there was always, like you said, there was a lot of good hands there, but there was always 1 or 2 top hands, that would come in for the rodeo,
Y'all remember one of the biggest fans they had there? The biggest stars they had was Robbie Vaquero in the bareback ride.
I used to live with him.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
We were both working for Doug Dugan at the time. I was going to ask you if you knew Robbie Vaquero.
Yeah, I know Robbie Vaquero and Doogie very well. Yeah, that's a crew to draw to right there.
Doug put me in a house living with Robbie. You know, I'm about 18 years old. I went to work for him down there building those McDonald's playgrounds and water slides.
I was in the insurance business back then, and I had the insurance for Dugan back then, building the McDonald's playhouses. So I know exactly what y'all were doing.
Oh yeah, we're having a lot of fun mainly, and building some playgrounds in the meantime. But he had an army barracks built deal, Jimbo, and all the rough stock riders would come and spend all winter and spring with him. A lot of the famous ones like Larry Sandvik and Denny McClanahan and a lot of those guys. And they'd work for Doug long enough to get a little bit of rodeo money, and then we wouldn't see him again for a while. So, and Doug was starting to rope steer, so I just hung around there and was roping with Doug every day when I wasn't off building a playground. He was great to Cowboys. Thank you, Doug, for everything he did for us.
Yeah, he really was.
He had an office right above the Cadillac Casino downtown Fort Worth, Jimbo, and they stuck me in there to live for a while. And about 2:00, card game.
The Cadillac bar up there on 28th up on Exchange,
right downtown Fort Worth. Yes, sir. Doug had an apartment above there, the little office deal. He had me living up there. They let me sneak through the back door of the Cadillac down them stairs every now and then, but half the time, Marcy keep me kicked out of there.
Wow. Did you haul your own team, Byron, when you were going?
Most time, yes. I've always had a horse. When I first got to rodeo on that first summer, Dad wouldn't let me. He said that you're too young to be off here, and he sent me off with a Winston bag, 4 pairs of Wranglers, 4 denim plaid shirts, and a bag and a shaving Ed Glimba shaving kit, and said you need to make it on your own. So I kind of went off that summer with Harley May and Don. And then later on that year, got in the truck with Roy Duval for a while, and boy, that was a fun time. Dang it, that was right after Roy married Karen, and we'd be going down the road. Of course, you never got sleepy riding with Roy because Roy never let nobody drive. He did all the driving, which was fine with me. And he had that air conditioner running 100, so it'd be 4th of July, and you better put a sweater on up there, you know, because he's gonna freeze you out. And he never could say my name. He could not, until this day, he cannot say Byron. He called me Born. Born Walker. I said, I can hear him say it, you know. So he said, now, Born, look at here. Back when I used to drink, if the story started out, now, Born, look at here. Back when I used to drink, oh my goodness, I can't tell the stories. I'm gonna let Roy tell all them stories, but he's told them to me. But man, you talking about a kid 18 years old sitting up in the truck, getting to ride on whiskey and drive down the road and listen to Roy tell him stories about things that they had done. And he said back in the day, they used to him and Nathan Haley and Jim Smith and I forget some of the ones that rodeoed with him, Painter and them. They'd go up to the Sydney, Iowa to the rodeos and said the first thing they did is they'd get the little trash can. They'd go down there and fill that full of ice. And then they'd take a whole bottle of whiskey and pour it off in that trash can and then put them some water in there and just go by so they could just dip in like it was punch. Now, a lot of that stuff don't go on in the rodeos anymore, but I can only imagine. And you're talking about them 4 big guys. There wasn't no double cab trucks. Right. They're riding in a single cab truck, 4 of them guys going down the road, and they had them a little shell camper back there. That's how they went, with a 2-horse trailer, and it was an inline. So rodeo, it sure has changed since them days when I first started. Now that, man, you can't, they pull in now and they got a semi truck pulling a 40-foot living quarters area and unloading 4 horses. And I'm like, what are y'all gonna do with all them horses? And but it sure had.
Did they haze for each other? Is that the way you did it? Just
yeah. We've always done that.
Yeah. How important is the hazer? Talk about that a little bit, Byron.
Well, when you get the guys that know what you want, like my dad hazed for me, went to the final 16 times. I think he probably hazed 10 of them. I'm guessing. I've never counted. Some of the other guys that hazed for me, Mac Altizer, Roy hazed for me a lot, Ode hazed for me. They knew that I wanted a wide go. I didn't want that steer pushed to me. I wanted that steer running straight and me riding my horse over to him so that horse could change leads and get away. I kind of wanted to, I didn't get down leaning back. I kind of got off. My dad too, that's the only fallacy in my steer wrestling. I got off wrong because I went off kind of like Captain Marvel. Like I didn't use saddle horn to get off. I couldn't get there fast enough. So when I rode up there, I had to go there. If that steer was right underneath me and up close, I couldn't catch him. It was the way I did not bend my knee and get off. I did not want that steer coming into me. So I had to have hazers that would let me get my go. That was my go. I wanted him straight down the arena. I wanted that hazer to have his boot right at his horn. He'd sit right there and just hold him right there. Don't push him to me. So Oak was right the difference. He told me to jump out and shove them to him. So when I hazed for Oak, he wanted them in there tight. And everybody gets their go, and you got to know, the hazer's got to know how to give that guy his go. That's what he wants. He wants his go off that horse. Once again, that's why all them training tools that I backed up and told y'all about a while ago, you got to develop your own go. And that's what we talking about, get a go at them steers' heads. And it was way more important when them steers weighed 750 pounds than today when they weigh 450 pounds. I mean, back that you was asking that year at the finals in 78, Cotton Rosser had the steers at the finals, and they wouldn't let us in the arena to throw the steers down. We had to throw them back there where the stalls was. Well, you know, back in them stalls, the ground's hard as brick, and they got hay. We used straw for bedding back then. There wasn't no shavings. We used straw and bed all our horses in straw. All that straw was on top of that hard ground. I never will forget. Skip Akers took a hold of this steer, and he's got him by the head. Dan Ackley's got a hold of him by the tail, and this steer's running off down that hallway of that deal. When he hit that stall at the other end of the chutes, it knocked the whole stall door in. And so there's Skip in there, and Dan is still on his tail, and that steer kicked and like it broke Dan's jaw. And Roy had been drinking that day at the deals. He said, "Boys, I don't believe these steers need throat. It's going to kill us all if we get them throat." And I said, "I'm with you, Roy. Let's go to the bar." So we left. But them steers weighed 750 pounds in the finals that year. In fact, and this is a true story, and I'm going to tell it. I wished I could prove it, but you just got to take me my word. And I'll tell you who can back it up is Randy Vaughn. In 1978, me and Randy Vaughn were practicing for the National Finals Rodeo. It was his first year, my second year. And the sale in Ennis, Texas was on Wednesday. And we was telling Whitey Bob, that's what we call my dad. He says, "Dad, these steers, good gosh, we got to sell them." So they're just killing us. I mean, you know, we're practicing. We had 8 head of steers, and man, we needed some new ones. So Dad got on the phone, called Dad. If luck would have it, there was a guy down at Corsicana, Texas, which is 20 miles from us, had just got a set of steers in, and they weighed about 550 pounds. And Dad cut a deal to buy them steers. And so this was on Tuesday night. We ran the steers practice that night on them. Okay. We dropped them off at the sale barn Wednesday morning to sell them. And we had to go get the steers and write a hot check for the steers at Corsicana, come back by the sale barn and pick up our sale ticket to run that check to the bank, because we had to sell these. We had to get them on Wednesday, because when we sold these, to pay for them and then beat the checks back to the bank. When the sale tickets come out, them 8 steers averaged 980 pounds. Oh. And we had bulldogged them Tuesday night.
Oh, I believe you.
Oh, yeah.
Holy moly.
I've heard stories like that. Wow. What would these guys today think if you run a bunch of those in there?
Man, I tell you what, Pitt, I almost said a bad word, but if I had Bill Gates's money, and if there's a sponsor out there that would like to see this, call me because I'll do all the work. I want to buy 100 head of steers, and I want them steers out of Mexico, and I've got the arena to have it. That I'm going to put them on just on grass, not grain. Just turn them out on grass till they only weigh 550 pounds. I'm going to put them on the deal that they weigh 550 pounds. I've got a 16-foot box, and we're going to put the barrier a foot over, and the start's going to be a horn around the end of the gate. We're going to trail them through one time just where they know the back end is as a group, all 100 of them. They'll come right through the chute. We'll trail them through there. When the gate opens, they're going to walk about 2 steps and take off. And I want to have about a 5-header, and I want to add $100,000 to it, and then get it approved where they got to come for the points. And then I want to see how full the trash can is of these ring bits and all this crap that these kids have at the rodeo right now, and how many britches gets tore off. And we're talking about steers that only weigh 550 pounds. I'm going to cut them a lot of slack. I mean, if you'll read the rule book, a steer's got to weigh 500 pounds to be on television. That's in the rule book. You haven't seen a steer in 10 years weigh 500 pounds on TV. And I just want them to be 550, just there, walking fresh. And I think that would be the greatest contest of all times.
You know, one thing about these cattle today, they don't have any horns either, do they, Byron? I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, and that's just because they're so young.
Right, I know.
The steers that we used to run, they would be 3 or 4 years old. These steers coming across, they got across them before they're 2. So the times change that, but there is some out there every year that come across with the big horns. Unfortunately, there's such a demand for the team ropers and them to buy the steers that they can't. Now, I will say this. I think the team ropers have found out that the native Corrientes probably are better to rope than the Mexican Corrientes. So that's helping a little bit. But with all this border stuff they have, there's no telling what's going to happen. I mean, with the problems we got with Mexico, I can only imagine that the cattle industry is going to be tore up for that. And a lot of times now they're what I hear, there's some feedlots and stuff down in Mexico that they're feeding them steers out and not bringing them up here that they never ever had before. So I don't know about my being. It's evolving, but it's not evolving in a way that I see a lot of. It's going to be tougher for everybody in that event to keep going and doing what they're doing. You don't see this year the hazing at the national finals. The top 3 hazing horses were crippled, and them guys was having trouble. And that is a very hard place to haze. Thomas and Mack, it's a hard place to haze. It's not easy. You must have a great horse there. And the top 3 horses in the business were crippled, and you could sure see it. It didn't matter how good them guys were hazers. They had to have something underneath them. And that's the most unsung hero in horses. There's horses. Oakberry had Eddie, and he had the Flop. Roy Duval had Old Black. We had Henry. We had Doc. I can just go through the years of all the great hazing horses that never have got any notoriety and nothing. They're in no Hall of Fame. They're forgotten. They're nowhere are the great hazing horses mentioned in rodeo. And that's probably the greatest horses that there are, because, you know, that horse had to go a bunch every time the great horse, whether it's a catfish or a whatever horse it was, went, he had to go every time, you know, that horse went. And that's sad. There's a little hint right there. Maybe y'all need to have a Hazing Horse Hall of Fame section in y'all's museum up there to mention some of them great horses of all times, because they are, you know, people are forgetting about them. You call Huddleston. You know what horse made Colt? was the sorrel horse that Huddleston had. I don't know what that horse's name was, but it's before my times. Don had a big sorrel horse and put a flag on a whip because old Colt run too tight, started moving him over, and then that horse got famous. And then when Smith took him on the road, bought a horse from Dean Shindell called Howdy Do, made that horse famous. I told Mark Wallace, I said, Oates got this horse up there called Quattro. You need to buy this horse. And he give a tremendous amount of money for him. And he says, Byron, you're absolutely crazy. You cannot make that money. I said, I'm not giving that kind of money for that horse. I said, Mark, it's the difference. And when he did, it took him 3 weeks to pay that money back. And he became a 2-time horse of the year after he got that Hazing horse. Before that, he was just a good horse. The Hazing horse made him a great horse. And that's still the horse that Clayton has still to today, was crippled in the finals this year, Quattro, that made Ben's, his horse, a great horse.
What are you asking of? Do they ever go both ways? Does that happen very much for?
They do, and most of the time, that's a good point. That's a very good question you just asked, because most of the time I like to take my Hazing horses and move them over to the steer wrestling. A great example of that was when I had the horse. I bought a little brown horse and turned that horse into a bulldogging horse. And that's the horse that they won 6 state championships on in Texas in the junior deal. And my son won all his money. Was the horse that I hazed on when I had my bulldogging horses when I quit. But that is, yes, most of the time that's where the bulldogging horses back that we made were started off as Hazing horses. And when they get to running off too much, then they become bulldogging horses.
What do you mean by running off? Explain that, Byron.
Well, you get to hazing, and when you haze that steer, you get him hazed, you would like that horse to stop and kind of walk to the other end. Okay? You don't want him just, when you get up there to the steer, just busting on by, because if you do, the steer will jump out behind that hazing horse, and now your go's wide and your guy's missed him. So when he gets to kind of getting up there and he's kind of wanting to grab that bit and go, that's when put him on the other side and let him do it. That's what you want him to do. And the horse that I was thinking, that his name was Deacon, and he was as good a hazing horse when I had Preacher, which was a world's champion bulldogging horse. That was the last horse I had, was Preacher. Reagan just, oh man, cried. What are you doing selling Preacher? I think I've got to have a bulldogging horse. I got to have this. I said, don't worry about it, baby. We got Deacon. Well, he ain't never go out and run one. I said, just get on him. We got on him that one day. The rest was history.
Hey, Byron, what's the difference in rodeoing in Texas and rodeoing in the Northwest?
Fans. I think, unfortunately, there's so many things to do in Texas now that our rodeos are not doing as well as the fans in the Northwest. It's more of a happening. We're getting to metropolitan here in Texas. I mean, you still have your rodeos that are absolute. Probably what the best rodeo is in Texas right now, and I have to say this is San Angelo. I'd say San Angelo is. They don't have a star there. It's not a. It's still. You go walk up there, especially working for Dugan, and you're not going to walk around them stands that you're not going to see a bunch of rodeo fans, ranchers, and stuff coming to town that do that. The one close to us, and it's my favorite rodeo, is the Fort Worth. I still call it the Fat Stock Show. Unfortunately, I see the pictures of the crowd at Fort Worth. The fans don't even know how to crease their hat. You can tell by looking at them, they're not. I mean, you guys are right. Look at your hat and tell your Cowboys. That's the dead giveaway. Look at your hat, and you know that if you got your hat crease like LBJ, you're not a cowboy. You're a businessman. That don't mean that you're nothing wrong with you, but you're just not got a rodeo background or whatever. And I think the hat is the dead giveaway. And you look at the fans in the stands at Fort Worth, and you can tell that a lot of them, you know, they wore their hat last year to the rodeo, and they don't wear it every day. So I'm saying that they're not wear your cowboy hat everyday people. Thank goodness for Taylor Sheridan. He may be bringing some of that back where it's cool to be a cowboy. I mean, I love his shows and the work he does and all that. So I'm proud of what he's doing for our industry.
Oh yeah, he's lifted the Western way of life up all over the country, maybe all over the world, you know.
Yeah, he's done a great job. It's the first thing that's come through. One of the things that's come through is back in my day was the urban cowboy.
Yeah, it's just like the urban cowboy used to be. Same
Urban
thing.
Cowboy and Love You Blue that was going on in Houston, and them were rodeo fans, and they come every day. The rodeos that won the Rodeo of the Year, Pendleton, Outdoor Rodeo of the Year, I think that's because they have not changed. Pendleton's stayed the course. One of the things that I'm most proud of Fort Worth, isn't that a beautiful grand entry we're watching on television every night?
Oh yeah.
It's just absolutely fabulous with the Barnum's Finest song playing where they come in and the black and white paint horses and Jim's daughters dressed to the nines every night and displaying their flags and stuff. I mean, to me, that's what rodeo is. And it's the greatest grand entry of all times. And it's getting better every year. The ladies that are now having competition about who can wear we call them nudie suits. Remember back in the day that everybody wore the nudie suits and stuff. And that's just, I love that. I love watching that.
Yeah, that's good watching.
I like it too. You don't like it, there's something wrong with you, I guess.
Right. Byron, if you were making a Mount Rushmore of steer wrestlers, who would you put on it? And they don't have to be in your generation, even.
I'll tell you what,
think deserves to be on it.
I've got to say this in a different way because I like to quote one of my friends, Don Gay, and I'm going to do it the same way that take it in jest. If somebody asked Don, he said, "Who's the best 5 bull riders of all times?" and he held his hand up here and he pulled his thumb down and said, "Besides myself,"
yeah,
he named 4. So I'm going to do the same thing. Besides myself, you got James Bynum. Okay. You got to put Roy Duval on there. You got to put John W. Jones Sr. on there. I guess the next one that I might put up there, I'm going to give it to several and I'm going in my generation. So I'm going to get 2 Mount Rushmores because I'm going to get the Mount Rushmore here and then the new modern Mount Rushmore. I'd like to put up there Tom Ferguson, Jack Roddy, Harley May, Tommy Purrier, Billy Hale. All of them guys would all fit in there. But I mean, of them top 3, James Bynum, Jim, Roy Duval, and John W. Sr., that would be the first time in my career of the guys that I put up there. Now, my career lasted a long time. So now we're going to go to the new career of cowboys that their career started when we started Las Vegas in 1985. Okay. Because you got two deals. The ones I mentioned, that career was back Oklahoma City, Dallas, Los Angeles career. Big steers, fresher steers, momentum. When we went to Las Vegas, all the cowboying and steer wrestling got thrown in the trash can. And I'm going to say this, when they went to Las Vegas, I've never seen a more dominant man, steer wrestler at the Thomas and Mack than Mike Smith. Mike Smith, the draw meant nothing. Man, he was just a man amongst men. I mean, it was unreal. Now, he was a terrible cowboy. He had no style and he had no form, but he was just ungodly strong. So he was absolutely a dominant force in there. Then you got to put the next guy up there that absolutely, it's amazing. He was such a good steer wrestler that he was able to win as much as he did at Las Vegas. And that was John W. Jones Jr. Great friend of mine, great steer wrestler. Absolutely. I love competing against John W. In 1983, we swapped the lead. Was it 84? 84. 83 is when Joel beat me. 84. We swapped the lead by $1. Shoot. 7 of the 10 nights at the finals. And we went to dinner at the Cattleman's out there, probably 3 or 4 nights during that time frame. And not one thing was ever mentioned about where we're sitting and everything. They were just good friends. We love competing against everybody. He's a great friend today. I love his girls that run barrels. He's a great. And then you got Oatberry and you got Steve Duhon. Them two guys were absolutely great there. And then the next one, you can't say enough about how tough Luke
Could have put
Brackino.
Todd Fox in there, but he never won a world championship. But man, that guy was tough.
Yes, he was. He was tough and a great friend of mine. But I think somewhere, if Todd, I've told Todd this a lot of times, and I don't mean it ugly. If they had not have moved to the national finals and it was still in Oklahoma City, Todd might have won the world 2 or 3 times. Well, you remember this Mount Rushmore you're talking about. I've changed it to now we're going to have to throw that. That does count. This is, it's kind of like, the national finals, it's in that building and it does count. I probably wouldn't be on that Mount Rushmore. For sure, I wouldn't be on that Mount Rushmore. I don't know if I'd ever won a world championship because everything I did good when you went to Las Vegas went skin. You threw it in the trash. You got to put Luke Branchino in there. I think they will probably put Luke in the Cowboy Hall of Fame to be the 17th member of our clan up there in Colorado Springs this summer. I cannot imagine. He's definitely retired, and that's the type guy that's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he's just absolutely a first ballot Hall of Famer. And then you get honorable mentions in there of guys like Blaine Peterson and Lee Graves, 2 Canadian cowboys that were absolutely great steer wrestlers. I think Lee won it a couple, maybe 3 times. I don't know, 2 times. I don't know. Blaine only won it once, only because he absolutely had the worst knees in the world. But there is no question that is as tough a guy as I've ever seen. And Tyler's not done. I mean, he's won 4 so far, and I don't see nobody out there giving him much of a run for the money.
Didn't hear Rope Myers in any of that.
No, you didn't.
Well, that guy could bulldog good too, Jimbo.
Yeah.
Saw him in a match at the Windy Ryan one time. Had him beat before the last one.
Wow. You mentioned Tyler, 4 world championships. He may challenge Homer Pettigrew's record. You reckon?
He could. He's got 6. See, I never seen Homer bully. Homer
Right.
would have been one I left off the deal, but he was before my time. I never
Sure.
seen. I met Homer one time, but I never got to see him bulldog, and I never got to see some of the other steer wrestlers that are in the Hall of Fame back in that day. My Bynum and that crew up in the 50s and stuff. And there was another guy in there that bulldog pretty decent to give me a run for my money a lot of times. And hopefully he's listening to the deals. Is C.R. Boucher. Boucher was a heck of a daggum good steer wrestler up there. Boucher used to make, for some reason, one year me and him got to drawing the same steers. And he got to pointing out how much faster he was on them than I was. And I always told him, I said, well, Bouch, when you pull the steers around, your buckle's so rusty that it don't bother them, and mine's so shiny they shy away.
So we've got a nice display of CR here in the museum. He's from right over here in Osage, Western Osage County. And
Yeah, I heard he's not doing well either.
yeah,
but
I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, he's in a.
My grandfather actually, Hayes, you put Homer Pettigrew a lot. And
he did.
yeah, and in fact, in Homer's display down in Oklahoma City, big picture of him at New York, my grandfather's hazing for him.
Really? There was another cowboy. I don't know if he's from y'all country. Was a guy up there named Dwayne Haney?
Dwayne Haney?
Yeah. He was kind of a bull rider, horse trainer, and all that. Guys made it. The only reason I bring him up is that's
Dwayne Ramey.
No,
This
this guy right here is where Bynum got blue from.
Okay.
Anyway, just
Well, Byron, we sure appreciate you coming on the podcast today. What about your podcast? When can people catch it, and what is it?
we'll start season 3 up this spring. We kind of do it when everything is kind of calmed down. We'll do a bunch of shows together. I usually try to get some of the winners of the building rodeos and point them out. I mean, one of the deals, this amazing fact, last year, one of the people I had on there was Tuff Cooper after he won San Antonio. He told me with this tournament format, a roper had won as much. That's the 3rd major rodeo he'd ever won. Now, can you believe that? I mean, you're talking about as good a roper as there was, all around champion and everything. He says with this tournament rodeo, you got to win the short go. And back to what I said, I won second at Cheyenne 6 times. I won the short go 3 times. Well, I'm a 3-time champion at Cheyenne, or I'm a no-time champion at Cheyenne. So, that tournament rodeo is killing some of them great guys like that they're not winning a lot of them major rodeos because the cream that ain't the cream rising to the top. That's simming the cream off the top to taste the cream at the top. It didn't rise, it's already rose, and now you're just going to get you a little sampling right there at the end. And I think it may be here to stay. Maybe, I don't know. Thank the Lord that I got to rodeo when I did, because we had a lot of fun. We pulled jokes on people. We pulled pranks on people. I had a deal the other day. I need to come back on here because we need to talk about the greatest beer stands in rodeo. That'd be another podcast. I want to get down for that.
Sure. I was going to ask you about that. What was the best beer stands?
We got to do that a whole nother podcast. I want to come back. We'll talk about that because I can make a whole show out of the greatest beer stands in rodeo. Yeah, and I can even make a podcast of the greatest the greatest bars to go to after the beer stand closed at the Fort Worth Rodeo. So I can make that into a whole show.
What about did you ever go to Ricky and the Red Streaks there at Cheyenne?
Oh, man, I went to Ricky and the Red Streaks when they were over in the little bar. See, they started out in the hotel bar, and then they moved them over into the ballroom. So when we started out there, they was in the little bar. John them started that show in there. I don't know why. We'd go to the show every night and laugh the same old jokes. I believe right now, they said he was in Fort Worth not too long ago. I promised to get up on stage and play any Daddy-O or any of the ones in the whole show. I've seen this many times. But
what about the big now everybody's playing on their phones, but I've heard a lot of good tales of some pitch games going on with all these Bulldogs.
We could have another
pitch games.
Pitch games. I was a pretty good pitch game player. I said the other day on a deal about that poor barrel racer only winning $4,000. One year, me and Bud Monroe got hot up there, and we won more money in the pitch game than she won in the barrel race.
Yeah.
I don't even think nobody knows how to play pitch anymore. That's what we need to do. We need to have the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum World's Champion Pitch Tournament.
That's right. Are we going to do a cut deck? Or are we going to do full deck? What are we going to do?
Oh, here? You don't know. Are you going to let it out that we play with less than a full deck? How would you like to be known as? How would you like to be known as? Oh, I don't play with a full deck.
Well, how about we just call it pool hall pitch then?
There you go.
We'll just call it pool hall pitch. So the game goes a little faster sometime. That's what we played in the pickup. Pool hall pitch. Yeah. What about, the Bulldoggers are all a bunch of big old boys. What's the biggest meal you've ever seen one of them sit down and eat?
It's funny you asked that. We're at John W. Senior's house. And I was so embarrassed. Gary Green was rodeoing with me, and Johnny invited us out to there to eat. And Gary Green, we call him Mudbone. John W. Sr. got to aggravate me about how many ribs can you eat? And I wanted to slap him. He sat down and he ate a pile of ribs. The bones were that tall you couldn't even see over them. And John said, "Is that all you can eat? Is that all you can eat?" And just kept feeding him these ribs. I bet he eats 6 slabs.
Wow.
I know one thing in his 4-year time, but that's another thing. You talk about eat a lot. After the slack in Houston, we used to go over to Angelo's Fisherman's Wharf and eat. And their appetizer at the restaurant was all the oysters on the half shell and boiled shrimp you could eat. That was the appetizer. You just, when you got done with that, then you bring your entree. And I think they still do it at the San Jacinto Inn down there in Houston. But anyway, we went over there one day, and after the slack, we'd had a few beers, went over there and was going to eat at Angelo's. I ate 6 dozen oysters on the half shell. Shorty, another guy that rode our horse, he eat about 7. My dad ate about 5 or 6 dozen. Another guy with us eat about 6 or 7 dozen. And then we had the shrimp. Then we had some oysters Rockefeller. And then we had our entree. And that waiter had got mad at bringing us so many oysters. And she said in a smart mouse that my dad said, "Is there anything else you want?" And Dad said, "Yeah, how about a cup of coffee?" She said, "Do you want me to bring it in a bucket?"
All right, we're gonna have to come back with the pitch game and the beer stand episode next time,
For the
Byron.
beer sure episode, I'll do a little research.
Yeah, one time, Jimbo, about when we're signing off here, I'll tell you this story is bad. I made a lot of memories for people at some of them beer stands. I don't remember most of them, but I wrecked a moped into the one at Cheyenne one time. Stood right up and ordered a beer.
Why were you even on a moped?
I don't know. Just ended up on it.
As many horses as there was at Cheyenne, why were you on a moped?
I don't even know. I don't even know where it came from. It was a yellow one, but wrecked it right into the beer stand, Jimbo.
Well, you can just add that to one of his beer stand stories when we do that next one.
Surely Cheyenne's got a rank on them top 5 beer stands for sure. All right, Byron.
I mean, we'll go back to the show, but I don't think so. I think I got some that's going to top.
Oh, yeah, I imagine.
We'll say.
Would the Letterbuck room be considered a beer stand?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Good.
And so is this is how old I am. And so is the tent at Salinas.
I've never been out there, but I'm going to take your word for it.
Well, the sad part about it is, and then we'll say with it, we call it the old timers still call it the tent because they just have a little canvas tent down there with beer stand, whiskey went in there. Now it's about a 70 by 200 foot building, and it's so full you can't get into it. But the old timers still call it the tent.
Well, sir, we sure appreciate you coming on, and we can't wait to do the beer stand. Be thinking about all the great beer stands out there for us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Maybe we'll get a deal where people can call in.
You got it. Hey, where does your podcast come out on, Byron, so everyone can check out your past 2-3 seasons?
It's on Spotify, I think.
Spotify. What's it called?
I got a guy that does all that. Man, you're asking me to embarrass me with the technical questions. I'm just a talent.
Well, me and Jimbo, we got us a couple roadies, and we got some technical people behind the scenes.
Right.
My wife, she's
Right.
the roadies and the technical person. So
I got a guy in British Columbia that does that for us and stuff. We just do the deals and send him the deals, and he gets them on. And so,
excellent.
I'm just here for talent. I appreciate you guys. I like what you're doing. I like your museum. And I'll get up to Pawhuska and come in there and see it.
You bet. We look forward to it.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Thank you for joining us.
it's been a pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Enjoyed it.
It could have got off on a whole wilder deal here, Jimbo.
Yeah. Well, we kept it pretty
Yep.
between the lines.
We kept it between the lines this time. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. You got anything else for him, Jimbo?
Hit that like and share button.
All right. Thank y'all. Thank you, Byron.
Thank you.
told stories like long lost friends. Rodeos and late night bends. History before our time. Round pens and pasture rides. Cowboys of the Osage.